Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Pop to the Top by using Google My Business. Our presenter today is Margaret Eastwood and is sponsored by the North Cook and Lake Counties chapter of SCORE. I'm Jim Axelrad, one of over 65 mentors with our local SCORE chapter, and I'll be serving as today's moderator. This session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. Please submit your questions using the Q&A function at any time. We welcome all your questions and they will be answered at the end. The formal presentation will be about 45 minutes, so we have plenty of time for questions. SCORE is a national nonprofit organization that has been helping businesses since 1964. SCORE has over 14,000 volunteers, such as Margaret and myself, in 300 chapters across the US. On the next slide, you'll see that SCORE provides free, confidential mentoring for small businesses. We have a large library of resources for those who want to start a new business or grow an existing business. All of those resources are available to you on our website, score.org, and are completely free of charge. To request a mentor, please visit our website, northchicago, one word, .score.org, or send us an email at scoreNSCLC@gmail.com. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our speaker tonight. Margaret Eastwood is a certified SCORE mentor and serves with SCORE's Suburban North Cook and Lake Counties chapter. Margaret loves to help companies grow. Lately, she's focused her client mentoring on search engine optimization, performance analytics, and of course, Google My Business, both teaching classes and working directly with individual SCORE clients. Margaret has held top executive positions in several large corporations in an array of disciplines. She also co-founded 2 startup companies. Margaret retired as a senior vice president at Johnson & Johnson's medical devices business and holds a PhD in computer science. Now, I'm just going to personally make this one statement about Margaret, and I'm going to simply say that I worked with Margaret on a prior webinar that we did, and one of the things we got back in comments was Margaret does a great job of presenting complex information very clearly. So Margaret, I'm turning this over to you, so feel free to start.
Well, thank you. I wasn't expecting quite that introduction, but thank you for the kind words. Hello, everyone. We are glad you're able to join us. The topic of today's webinar is the fact that we would like your business to pop to the top. And back in 2020, when we had the lockdown and a lot of other restrictions, some companies certainly did pop to the top. Their business was absolutely booming. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for all businesses. Some had to close, some just had to drastically cut back their operations. It was really pretty awful. And the unfortunate part is that many of the businesses so dramatically impacted were what Google categorizes as local businesses. Now, local businesses are brick and mortar locations, not just restaurants and hair salons that we think of, but also doctors' offices or dentists. They're all brick and mortar, and they're considered local businesses. Another category is local area service businesses. Those are people like plumbers or piano tuners or caterers who do their work at somebody else's location, but they're also considered local. In the last 2 years, there's been a new version that has sort of evolved, and that is what I'm calling live online services. Think of the yoga instructor who used to work out of a studio and now is interacting with clients from the home over Zoom, or a math tutor who used to go to the child's home or school and now does the tutoring over Google Meets from home. Now that, and those are being treated by Google as local businesses as well. And now that the restrictions have been relaxed, certainly is a time when many of these companies are very eager to make sure that customers know that they're back in business and to attract their attention and regain their own momentum. And just a minute. One of the things that might help do that is Google My Business. It's an extremely valuable tool. And the reason I gave you all that detail on what is a local business is that they are the only ones that are eligible to have a Google My Business account. The e-commerce and other online only companies are not eligible. So this is a big benefit if you're local. So at last, it's local companies' turn. Let me tell you why they're so valuable. This is the overwhelming reason why you want a Google My Business account, and that is visibility at the top of the search results. This is huge. I put it in extra big font just so you would really notice that's the reason you want to do this. By the way, it's also very convenient for customers. They really like it, and it's always nice to make your customer happy, and it's easy for you and free. It is much, much faster and easier than either setting up social media or website with search engine optimization. This is really much more direct, and as you'll see, quite easy to do. So let me explain to you when I say why the visibility is so much better. I'm sure you've all done a Google search. And if so, you know that when you do that, you get a bunch of paid ads up at the top, and then you get a lot of listings underneath that. In fact, probably page after page of them that you can choose from. But most people only look at the first page or two and don't go down any further. And depending on how much SEO you've been doing, if this is your company's listing, you might be up here somewhere, but you're going to be in this general areas where your company will be. And for some searches, it gets even worse because all of these Google My Business stuff gets stuck on top of you. It gets stuck even in front of the paid search ads. And at this point, the probability of your listing being noticed by anyone is extremely small, to be blunt about it. The probability of them finding you is low. And you say, well, so what? How often does this happen that you have all this extra stuff? Well, it turns out a lot of time. In fact, almost 50% of the time, this happens. And that's because these are local Google searches. And those are things that say something about location. A painter near me, a restaurant in Arlington Heights, a gas station near wherever I am on the highway. So these are all local searches. And when it's that kind of search, Google puts all this stuff on the top, and here you are at the bottom. But watch the magic. Boom. The minute you have your Google My Business profile up and running, your listing that used to be way down here is up here. It's like magic. It's wonderful. Now, there's still competition here, don't get me wrong. I will show you an example of a 3-pack in just a minute, but you'll be up here somewhere. You will no longer be down there. So this is why I say it's extremely valuable. And I should be able to stop the webinar right now and have you totally convinced the first thing tomorrow morning, you're going to rush right out and get one of these things, because it's that there's no other way to make your way up here for your company's listing. So that's why we want to do it. But before you do literally just rush right out and implement, first of all, I'm going to tell you how in a few minutes later this evening. I will tell you how to do that. But we should probably consider the customer. It's always good to do that. And what kind of a customer experience do we want to have? So I have made up some little scenario here. And while you watch this, I want you to think about your business and what would make a good customer experience for your type of business. So in my little scenario, Tom and Mary have just moved to a Chicago suburb, and their good friends from their previous town are going to come and visit them. And all 4 of them want to go see Willis Tower because they've never seen it. So this is my little example. So how might this work? Tom gets on there and he types in Willis Tower, and he gets this information in this border. See the border? What's in the border is either called a knowledge panel or it's called a business profile, depending on what article you read. I'm going to refer to it as a business profile. And so when we're talking about, it means that your information will appear in these borders up right near the top of the list. All right, so Tom types in Willis Tower, and right away he says, oh, this is great. I wondered if I was going to need tickets. And yes, I do need tickets, but I can buy them right here. And oh, here's the address and also directions. I've never driven downtown. I'm so glad it's going to help me. I wonder what time we should go and visit Willis Tower. So he looks over here at this little graph and he says, well, I think maybe we want to go in the morning. And then we could stay downtown for lunch. But as he scans the reviews, he sees that this one is not really all that positive about the food and drink. So he thinks, well, maybe we ought to consider a different restaurant and not eat right there. So this time he types in lunch restaurant near Willis Tower. And this time he gets a 3-pack. And you can see here's 1, 2, 3. Those are the 3 restaurants near Willis Tower that Google has selected to move up to that top. Remember that sequence I showed you, for him to look at first. And he looks at the first one, health food. Yeah, I don't think so. Wedding venue, definitely not. Pizza, okay, that's a candidate. We like that. But maybe I want to see more. So he clicks down here on view all. And that's when the rest of the Google My Business listings will appear for him. So what do we get? Ignore this Giordano's right in the middle for a moment. What he gets is this big list of restaurants and this big map. It would be covering this entire area. And he can say, well, here's Willis Tower right there. And he can see where all these different restaurants are in the list. Here's Giordano's, here's another one. Here are a couple more that were listed up here. And he can look at those and say which one he wants. And he says, well, I will try reading more about the pizza place. So when he clicks on this, he then at that time gets the Google My Business profile from Giordano's. So he can now look at this and decide, yes, it does get pretty good reviews. Maybe that is the one we're going to go to. We should go to for lunch. So he's found it very efficient to plan out that excursion that they're going to do. But his wife, Mary, has been busy as well. She knows that their guest bathroom in this house they've just moved into, the shower doesn't work. So she types in, I need a plumber near me. And what she gets is a lot of listings of companies that are in Google My Business accounts and a big map. And if she were to click on one of these, she would see their profile. But for whatever reason, she doesn't do that. She's going to click directly on the website of this one for, I don't know, just as an example for you. And so she's going to pick this plumber, and then she wants to look good. And somebody had told her about this particular hair salon. And she says, oh, great, I can just click right here and make an appointment. So in a very short amount of time, they've been able to organize this trip. Now, one more time, this is the one I already showed you for Willis Tower. And by the way, these screenshots are from a laptop. If you were doing this on a mobile phone, the format would be slightly different, of course, but still, I think, recognizable for my entire talk. All of the screenshots are from a laptop. So you'll have to adapt just a little bit if you're doing it from mobile. But let's look at this screenshot one more time. Do you see all those red arrows? Those are all pieces of information in this business profile that were not supplied by the Willis Tower people. They were supplied by somebody else. In fact, Google itself feels empowered to put any information at once into your profile without asking you about it. And so you see this little snippet here from Wikipedia, and you see some reviews from somewhere else. Those were probably put in by Google. And this little graph of how busy the place is on any given day, Willis Tower does not supply that information, nor will you supply it about your business. Google computes that by tracking all of the locations of all of our cell phones. I'll just let that sink in for just a minute. That's where that chart comes from. There's also information that comes from reviewers and other people like that. And it happens again, if you look on Giordano's, somebody asked a question, and the person who answered the question was not somebody from the restaurant, it was another customer. So I have some observations for you. First of all, the takeaway from this, where we're talking about the custom customer experience that you're going to create with your wonderful Google My Business profile can look different for different kinds of businesses. That was quite a variety I chose to include in this example. And the other takeaway is that you don't really have control over all of the information. And so you should make sure you monitor it and look at it from time to time to see if there are any surprises. There's another takeaway, and that is that the Google My Business profile gives customers all sorts of capabilities. And you saw some examples with getting directions. They can call your business, they can get to your website, they can make an appointment or a reservation, you can buy products or services, and you will have to decide as you are setting up your profile tomorrow morning, first thing, which of these kinds of services you would like your customers to have access to. One of the things that is somewhat controversial actually in the industry is that Google is now making it possible for customers to do many things without ever going to your website. Some people think that's terrific, and some people are concerned about that, but that's just a statement of how it is. All right, so we have already looked at why is this valuable, and it's because your listing is going to be much, much higher up in the search results. We've also talked a little bit about the customer experience that you would like to deliver using these profiles. So now let me tell you about how you would go about implementing it. So it is easy. I've seen it done in less than an hour, and it's free. So I gave you a smiley face. All right, what do you have to do to make it happen? The first thing you have to do is set up the profile, and that's the only thing that's required. Everything else is optional that I'm going to tell you about. So first you're going to set it up, and then you will probably want to add additional features to it to entice people to click on it, because obviously you want them to pick yours instead of somebody else's. You're also going to be curious at that point as to whether or not you're getting any results. So you will want to check your results and see if it's making any difference. And I will show you what screens are available to do that as well. All right, so here we get to the meat of the presentation. This is the second most important slide, I guess. The first one was you really want that visibility. You really do want a profile. And this is how do you go about setting it up. First of all, you do have to already have a Google account, and you may already have one. If not, you can get a free Gmail account, and that's not a difficult thing to do. And at that point, you can go to google.com/business and hit Manage Now. When you do that, you'll see this big button that says Manage Now, and it will start you on a step-by-step instructions where you're going to fill in the information about your business. It's quite simple questions, really. They're going to ask for the business name, the address, the phone number, what hours you're open, things like that. And it will lead you step-by-step through each of these questions. When you're all done with that, you're going to click on a button that says Verify, because Google is going to verify that your business is indeed eligible for Google My Business profile. So they take it quite seriously when they say it's for local businesses, and they have some criteria that they use. Then you will hear from them, you'll love this, by sending you a postcard through the US mail, and it will have a code number on it. And you will type this code number into your profile. At that time, it will become live, and people will be able to see it, and it will start showing up in searches, just as you saw the Willis Tower or the hair salon or one of these. It will now start showing up. While you're waiting for the verification to happen, you have the option of filling in a lot of other fields that were not required for the setup, but you were probably going to want to have a fuller explanation of what your business really is and why people should pick you. So this is what I mean when we talk about setting up the profile. You get it into Google, you tell them the information, and they will verify it, and then you're good to go. It sounds easy, and it is, but Google wants you to do this information in exactly its way. And so before you literally start typing and clicking on that button, you do need to give it a little bit of thought. one of the questions it's going to ask you is to pick your primary category. And you can't make up your own. You have to use one of theirs. And it's going to describe your business. And that's the topic on which Google will include your company, your business in the search results. Now, there are almost 4,000 of them to choose from, so you should not have too much trouble finding one that matches your business. In fact, you will probably find several, and you're allowed to have up to 10, but during the setup, you can only pick the primary one. So what I would recommend is that you look through the list. It's a pull-down menu, that you look through the list and find 2 or 3 that are all candidates, decide which one most specifically described your business, and use that one when you do the setup, when you're going through the step-by-step instructions. That's the category that you should put in. An example might be you're a bakery, but you also have tables and chairs. So bakery is your primary one, and restaurant might be a secondary one. Excuse me a minute. All right. Defining your business address. You would think this would be easy. And it is. If you're a brick and mortar establishment, you put in your business street address, and it will show up on maps with a little icon. Do you remember when I showed you Tom's results when he asked for a restaurant? There were a map with little icons all over it where you could see all the Google My Business locations. That's where you'll show up. And so you just put in your business street address. However, if you are a service area business, or if you are one of these virtual businesses where you're doing it from home via Zoom or Google Meets or something, do not put in your address. And please don't put in your residential address where you live, even if that's literally where you're doing your Zoom calls. What Google wants you to do is instead identify the service areas that you cover, and you can have up to 20 of these. And these can be things like, you can say, oh, I cover Evanston, Northbrook, and Highland Park, or I cover Lake and Cook counties, or certain zip codes. You can list the service areas. So if you're unless you're brick and mortar, that's what you should pick. And you can get into trouble with Google. They can suspend you if you use a residential address when they don't feel it's appropriate. So I would encourage you not to do that. So, okay, those are not too hard now that you know what to look for. You'll love this one. There's something called NAP consistency, which stands for name, address, and phone number. Google gives you extra ranking if you are very active on many places on the web, but it will only acknowledge that you have these multiple properties if everything is spelled exactly the same way. And I do mean exactly, down to abbreviations or commas or dashes or whatever it is. They have to be identical, and they're supposed to be identical everywhere. In your Google My Business profile that we're just setting up, in your website, in your social media places, in your directory listings because you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce or whatever, the Association of Dentists of Illinois, whatever. And you can see some examples of things that are not considered identical. Now, there was a very recent article that said that Google is no longer this persnickety, but I couldn't find that confirmed in enough places. So please give this a few minutes thought also prior to starting in on your step-by-step setup. Look at how you've spelled it or named it on your website. And you should probably make sure that your website and your Google My Business profile have exactly the same NAP. You may have to change your website one so you get something you like in both places. And then after the fact, you can change it other places. I will warn you that once you have put in your business name and your address into your Google My Business profile through the verification, it is very difficult to change them. So again, this is worth a few minutes time to think it through before you start that process. So let me just recap a minute. You're going to click on Manage Now. You're going to be stepped through what seem like very simple questions. And they are, if you've given them advanced thought. You've given thought to what you want as your primary category. You've decided what your appropriate address is, and you've decided how you want to spell and punctuate your name, address, and phone number. Think about all those things, type them in, and then hit verify. I hope that's clear. All right. So what I'm showing you here is the menu that goes with Google My Business. Now that you've got your account, you'll see this menu. Actually, you will see this menu right away, not just after it's verified. You will also see it before it's verified. And the kinds of information I was just describing to you is primarily here in this info menu item. And that's where all those questions were that were required for setup. And it's also where you're going to go if you have additional categories besides your primary one that you want to enter. This is where you'll do it. You'll do it from this menu item. But I want to call your attention to two other menu items, products and services, because it's highly likely that you will want to fill those out as well. They were not required for your setup, but we want them probably so that customers and Google can both use them. So let me show you what those two look like. All right, here we are with products. And I'm showing you two examples of profiles from businesses that have shown products. You see here the little pictures of the automobiles here, and I don't know, different things from Ace Hardware over there. When you first click on the products menu, you'll see something like this. So you can see how easy it is to enter these products. Here you drag the little picture into here and you say, what is it? And you can say what the price range is. But see these little yellow arrows that I put on here? You can group the products because presumably you have many of them, and you can make up any old group name you want. You can see, actually I can't read it because I don't have my glasses on. I apologize. But maybe Ace Hardware has lawn products and electrical hardware products and plumbing products, whatever. Maybe the automobile guy has trucks, SUVs, I don't know, whatever. And you can make up your own to put the products into your profile. So it's not difficult. You can decide what you would like to show. And you see there's a little caret. If people viewing your profile want to see more, they click on that little and can scroll through it. All right, what about services? Services are a little different. Services don't have any images to go with them. And this is an example because for some categories, there will be a standard set of services that are likely to be offered. And you just click, make little check marks next to the ones that you offer. This is a category of tire shop. And so maybe you also carry batteries or do something with brakes. But this particular example, they only clicked on tires and wheel alignment. But if your services aren't listed in the standard list, you can make up your own. So there's a place where you can type in what you want. And in this example, tire rotation, tire repair would be things that were services that you've added yourself to talk about what you really offer. This is all fine, sounds good, until I tell you the following, and that is this list of services may or may not ever show up in your profile. And you say, well, wait a minute, why am I going to bother to enter this if it's never going to show up? People aren't going to see it. It's true that people aren't going to see it, but Google is going to see it. And so if someone has hit a curve and they type in wheel alignment near me, Google will know that you clicked on wheel alignment and you will end up in the search results. Okay, so it's well worth doing, even if you're disappointed when you don't see it in the list. So some companies have been very creative in how they get around this particular issue. And let me use as an example, a hair salon. Now, hair salon also has services. They do color, they do permanents, they do blowouts, they do wedding parties, they do services, and they could enter it under services. But how much more attractive is it to a customer if they see instead these beautiful pictures where the car dealer had all the cars or lawn supplies. Instead, they're going to see beautiful hair salon pictures because they list it as products instead of services. And as far as I know, Google lets you get away with that so that it's much more appealing. In fact, I found this example of a dentist who did exactly that. And you can see that the dentist has listed them as products with images. And I found another example, but I don't have a screenshot of it. And that was a zoo that had as products that you could buy 1 week's worth of elephant feed, or you could buy essentially a donation for the refurbishment of the monkey house. So they too had found a creative way to use products. So that's sort of off track, but keep it in mind as you're entering your products and services. Okay, so we have our products and services. Are we going to now get people to really click on us? And so this is all optional, but you probably want to do it because it gets a lot more engagement with your prospective customers. And obviously you want that for clicking, but you also want that because this is what's going to help get you a higher ranking. And even in the Google My Business section, there is competition to be higher up. And if you have a lot of fresh content in your profile, slowly but surely, Google will work you up in that listing. And so that's an incentive for you to do this. So it's a win-win. Customers like it, and you will like it because your business, in theory, will do better. So there are two things that you can do. One is you can put out images, either photos or videos, or you can put out posts. Posts are just photos or videos which have text to go with them. And this is to help grab the customer's attention as well as give them more information. So I have some examples for you. Here are photos. Now, if you clicked on the photo menu item, you would see something similar to this. Like many aspects of Google My Business, it will look slightly different depending on what category you selected for your business out of that 4,000. You can see this is actually the one from Score, and you can see that it has all these categories of images that encourages us to put out there. And this would be different if you were a restaurant. It would have food and, you know, other things in it. And to add a photo or a video, you can just click on these when you're getting started. But I want to particularly draw your attention to the identity category, because probably all of you are going to want to add that. And those are special pictures called the cover and the logo. These pictures almost always are what Google will put up at the top of your profile when it's displayed. I can go back and show you in the Willis Tower one and in the restaurant as well, but it doesn't always put them there. Sometimes it's pick some other picture to put out there. And one of the things that is always surprising with your profile is the unexpected. So it's as much of a surprise to you as it is to your customer. To put out the photo is very easy. You can, when you click on that menu item, you get something like this, and you drag the photo or video into this little dotted box here. And then you click the plus sign and it will add it. If you decide to remove it later, you click on the little trash can. One of the things I want to point out to you that this is a horizontal picture. It's landscape format, not portrait. And so make sure that you do a horizontal picture and that you crop it to the right aspect ratio. And it'll have a little guide for you to do that. I keep forgetting to turn my phone when I'm going to take these pictures. So I encourage you to remember that all of the images pretty much in this whole system are expecting landscape. So we've done photos. I had a slide in here, which I took out. I should have left it for you. Google loves photos because customers like photos. And so it's always sending you reminders. What, have you posted any new photos yet? And it gives you all these numbers. So far, you have so many photos. I got an example from one of the restaurants in downtown Chicago. They had 287 photos. I counted them all in all different categories of their food and their interior and their exterior and their customers and all these things. So I guess it really works. So I will just pass that on to you if you like to take pictures. Posts are a slightly different situation, but still similar. When you click on the post menu item that was on the left, you will get this that has two lines. The top line is if you're going to add a new post, and the bottom line is if you want to look at an already existing post. The two on the ends, the COVID-19 type of post and the add product post, are special cases. So we're not going to talk about those tonight. The three that you are likely to use are the offer post, the update, and the add event. So they each have a slightly different format and allow you to do slightly different things. So I'm going to give you examples of those. Okay, here is how posts appear on your profile. Two of them show up at a time. And anytime you add yet a new one, it will go into the left-hand slot and everything will move one slot to the right, if you will. You can still see them by scrolling, but the newest one always comes into the left and you only see two at a time. The wonderful thing about posts is that you can have a call to action button. And there'll be a pull down menu that will say what ones you can choose from, and they will differ depending on which of the different types of post it is. Is it an offer? Is it a update, or is it an event? It will have different call to action buttons. Another thing which you cannot tell from this example, but I'll show you on the next slide, is that you get very little text visible when it's in the to display format. And to see the whole thing expanded, someone's going to have to click on this. It will expand and show all of the text. And that will be important when you're inventing it. So here I have some examples of posts. Here is an offer post. It was a clothing store, obviously. And you can see how it cut off the text. It cut off both the headline and it cut off the text. To see that, someone has to click first, and then it will expand. You'll see everything. And it has a offer as the call to action button. Both the one with the dog and the one with the quiz are actually update posts. You can put almost anything in those, and they show the most text before you have to click on it because they have no headline. And you can see, again, two different call to action buttons. One is book and one is learn more, just two of the choices. And you can contrast it again with the format of an event post. Again, you get a headline, but it gets cut off until someone clicks on it. And it will specify when it is. This is an event which is just all occurs on one day, but it also works very well if you have a multi-day event like Brewfest, July 3rd through July 5th, something like that. It works great for that. And again, we have some nice choices for the call to action button. All right, so because posts are well received by both customers and Google, it does encourage you to put out good ones. Certainly the high quality photos are pretty easy now, but you should label them as to what they are, because again, people won't see those labels, but Google will. So you want to put a label on them, not just some number like picture 27. The text, you can actually have 1,500 characters, but you don't want to include that many. You want to have usually 150 to 300 is recommended, because that's people's attention span and it gets the main things. But because they're going to be truncated, put all the important words up at the beginning so they're more likely to be seen. SEO at this point has permeated all of Google's world. So you do want to have keywords scattered throughout your posts and elsewhere on your profile, by the way, and always include the call of action button. Otherwise, you've really wasted a wonderful opportunity. You have to have a landing page. When you click on the call to action button, you're going to put in a URL for where it's going to go to learn more or where it's going to go to buy something. One of the things I should have given you an example of is the post menu will have a choice for you to hit preview. So you've brought in your picture, you've typed in your headline, you've typed in your date, you've typed in your text, and you want to know what it's going to look like. So you hit preview and you'll see it in the little square and everything. And you can say, oh yeah, that looks pretty good. And it fits pretty well. And then, and only then, you hit publish. I have to warn you that sometimes preview does not exactly look like publish. But after you've done a couple of these, you'll get to recognize where there's a slight difference, even though it implies that preview should be identical, it isn't really. I want to warn you about that. And lastly, Google reviews posts. I'm not sure that it reviews every post, but it certainly reviews some posts to decide whether or not they're able to be shown. And two things I want to bring to your attention. One is you should not have any phone numbers in a post text. You already have a phone number for your business right up at the top of your business profile is a place for your phone number, and they can call you there. And no phone numbers are supposed to be in the text of the post. The other thing is misinterpreted words. The example that they often quote is the hardware store in the middle of winter who did a post talking about the special they were running on weather stripping. Well, the automatic Google checker saw the word stripping and rejected the post, thinking it was inappropriate. So I don't know if that would happen to you, but I thought I would pass on the story. We've now, in a whirlwind tour, looked at all the different kinds of things that you might be most likely to use as you set up your profile and as you generate all this material in your business profile. It's worth giving some thought to getting better ranking. As I say, originally it was very easy to be near the top because most companies hadn't discovered Google My Business yet, but now it's gotten a lot of publicity, and so the area is getting more crowded. So you might want to think about its ranking within that section. As always, Google loves it when there's lots of activity, when you have lots of new content. So that's why they say add 1 or 2 photos every week, add a post every week. And what they really love is reviews, especially if they're 5-star. Those things is just quantity. And if you have the time to do it, great. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, but it's nice. The other is keywords. And I assume you know keywords from probably on your website. I hope you have them in your website, but you can put them here too. And you can put them in the business description, in the labels of your photos, and in your post contents. That's a good place to put them. And as you saw in that one example, all those things in your products and services also act as signposts to the Google algorithm as to when to put you into a search. So all those things, Google's looking at everything, both for better and for worse. It's looking at everything. So keep those in mind. So you too will either be in a 3-pack or you will appear not only higher, but more often in the searches. Okay, you're going to check your results. You've done such a great job. Let's see how it worked. There are 3 different menu items that help with that. One is how much activity have you gotten from all that posting you did? How much have you gotten with the 5-star reviews? And what about the numbers overall from your profile? So these are the menu items you will use to do these tasks. When I showed you the post menu item the last time, we used the top line to create a new post. This time, we're going to use the bottom line. And when you do that, you'll see the post displayed here, and it'll give you some numbers. The first number, it says 14 views. That means how many times did somebody click on the image such that it would expand and you could read all the text. That's what viewing is they expanded it so they could read it. The clicks number is how many times did somebody click on the call to action button. So it's a little bit confusing in the definitions here, the words they pick, but that's what these 2 numbers mean. And it's very helpful in your marketing strategy to see which types of posts and which kinds of offers are getting the most attention from the people who are reading them. So that's what you can get out of the post menu. If you look at the reviews, it's very easy to see how you're doing because it's right there in your profile for everybody actually to see. And that is, are you getting 5-star? What are people saying? Notice that Google may put in reviews that actually came from somewhere else. They didn't actually come from your profile. But here you can have people write reviews. You can encourage them to, because Google, again, ranks you higher if you have lots of good reviews. And when you've asked someone to write a review for you, remind them that they can add photos and videos as well. It's not just a text. And here, I'm guessing that this florist has asked the reviewers to please put in pictures of the flowers we did for you. Again, it generates a lot of interest on the part of customers. One of the things that I assume you already know about reviews is you should always respond to them. And so by clicking the review button, the review menu item in your Google My Business menu is the place where you will see the ability to reply. It's pretty obvious. You know, the big button says reply. You click that and then you can type it in. So that's how you do reviews. The last topic I'm going to cover here before we have the Q&A session is the menu item called Insights. And Insights is the analytics portion of Google My Business. They are in the process of changing the format of the reports, but this is what they look like at the moment. And they have quite a few standard reports that won't apply to every business, but they might be important to you. One is a chart that tells you which days of the week are people most likely to telephone you. And another one is how many photos do you have compared to similar businesses. Maybe there's a race with that restaurant who has 287 pictures. Maybe they're having a race with a restaurant down the street. I don't know. So these are interesting charts, and for your business, they might be appropriate. I'm going to talk about two of the charts that apply to essentially everybody. One is what type of search did the customers do that ended up with you being in the list? They have three categories. First category is direct. That means that whoever was doing the search knew your name. Remember, that's what we did with Willis Tower. Tom typed in Willis Tower. That would have been called a direct search. And in my example over here, Roadrunner Shoes is the name of an actual store. So somebody knew the name of this shop. Maybe they'd driven by it, saw the sign, whatever. Discovery is when somebody asks for the general category, like running shoes near me. It's what Tom did when he said, I want a lunch restaurant near Willis Tower. That would have been called a discovery search, and it would show up in these statistics over here. By the way, if you run your cursor over here, the numbers for each of these segments will show up. And the last is branded. It means you've asked, the searcher has asked for a particular brand. Maybe you love Adidas shoes because they fit your foot better. If you had typed in Adidas, it's going to show up in this category over here. And I bring this one to your attention because it too can play a good role in your marketing strategy. Do you want to stress what brands you carry? Or do you want to really try to increase the number of new people who hear your name? In which case you want to grow the discovery category. And one last chart, the activity from your profile overall. This is 1 month's worth of data. You can see it's the month of August for a particular organization. And what we get here is a summary from the profile. How many people went to your website from the Google My Business profile? How many people asked for directions? How many people called you? How many people sent you a message? This is actually 206 is a pretty good number of people going from there to your website. I would be happy with that number. This is a stacked graph, so you know how to read it. When you run your cursor over it, you can get the detail for any given day. Notice here that the number, this is at 18. That's at 18. The number of people who came to your website was 12. That's from here to there. Then one person asked for directions, and then 5 people called you. So this is a stacked graph, and that's how you get to 18. So I wanted you to know that. All right, in summary, I think Google My Business is just a wonderful opportunity for local businesses because of the visibility you get way up so much higher in the search results. You can have all sorts of information and actions that you decide are convenient for your customer. And in terms of effectiveness, it's such a favorite of customers that it's getting good reviews in terms of a channel, a marketing channel. It does compare favorably with a lot of efforts in social media and other options that you have. So I would certainly encourage you to give it some thought. I hope this has been helpful to you, and thank you very much. Jim, we can go to Q&A.
Becky, that was great. Thanks so much. That was very informative. You did not let us down. I know we got a lot of good comments. We also got a couple of great questions. We've got one that I'd like to start you off with. This comes from Arthur. When I search for my particular company and myself, I see off to the right in the border, he says, an image of me and my office address. Is this Google My Business?
If it's in a border, the answer is yes. You will see a format that looks very similar to whatever I've just shown you. It should have a place to go to call you or your address. The image, Google will might pick any of your photos that are out there. But the real way is to know, is it in this border? That's a real giveaway. There are some other tricks too. There's a certain icon it uses down the side. Unfortunately, I don't have a slide that shows that version. But almost always, the fact that it's in the border means, yes, it's Google My Business.
Great. And now he further asks, since this is through my company, which is not him personally, he says, is this mine to take over and update? Or is the company the owner?
Someone will have designated an admin. You can have multiple admins for a Google My Business account. For example, on SCORE, we have 2 admins for our Google My Business account. Either of us can do things with it. And so you can have a number of them, but it has to be identified. Whoever submitted the original verification, it had their Google account. Remember, I said you have to have a regular Google account and then you have a Google My Business account. Whoever did the original Google account when they submitted the profile for verification is the key owner who can then authorize these other admins.
Okay, good to know. All right, now Najifa asked this question. Do you recommend hiring someone to help with Google My Business? She further writes, I had a meeting with someone and they said they could help me increase my local business. I'm not sure if it's worth my investment or if I can do it myself.
All right. I would say that generating your profile is really a do-it-yourself thing. It's okay for you to do that original step-by-step thing if you're careful and if you think it through in advance, so you know what you want for your address and you know what you want for your category. I think you can do that part yourself. I believe that it's more a time consideration for hiring someone else. If you truly wanted to put out a post every single week, somebody has to write it, somebody has to take the photographs. That's a personal time management question as to whether or not you have time to do that. It's certainly, if you have a complicated business structure, you have 2 or 3 different locations, you have, you cover 4 or 5 different categories, which are very, very different, then you might want to pay someone. Google can be really persnickety. And if you have a very complicated business setup, then it might be worth hiring someone to do the original profile. Otherwise, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that question and answer. Now, Stacy writes in and she asks, is there a way to preview my Google, well, let me read this right. Preview my Google My Business site as a viewer and not as the admin?
I have that same problem when I'm working with the SCORE one. Yes, just pretend you're doing any other Google search, like searching for new shoes or something. But this time, type in your name, but not Susie.com. Type in, Susie's Physical Fitness or whatever. If you really have a Google profile, it ought to come up. It would be listed as a direct search, and you should see the profile as other people would see it.
Great.
Or ask your best friend next door and have them bring it up on their computer just in case you want to check, especially if you want to check it on different brands of mobile phones. Android versus iOS don't look the same.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I know you've brought it up to us as we've been looking at our website and making changes on the website, that we not just look at it on our desktop screens, but also on our mobile phones and our tablets. So yeah, that's good advice. Thanks, Peggy, for that one. Now, Sue is asking a question. Do you recommend using Google Call History option?
For those of you who don't know what call history option is, it keeps track of all the people who called you, and it keeps the phone numbers and what time they called, what day. It sort of intercepts your calls in a certain way. And it's when someone clicks the button on the profile that says, call this business. It depends on your business. If yours is very call intensive, you might find it useful to know that the pattern or the repeat callers. If you only get a few, I think it depends on the business. Do you really need that detailed information? If you run a call center, might be a good idea. If you get 3 calls a month, forget it.
Great. Thanks, Peggy. Now, Najifa also asks, what should I do if I move to a different state? Just update the address, or do I need to do something else?
To be honest, the question is, I don't know. I know I ought to know. I'm kind of embarrassed. I can't give you an answer with confidence. But I'm afraid to tell you just to go ahead and change it, because I don't know what happens to the verification, because I know certain changes of your address can cause a lot of problem. And so I'm not confident in telling you, oh yeah, just send them an update. So I'm just going to admit, I don't want to give you advice on that topic. I'm sorry. I will research it if you like. Jim, if you can capture that person's name, it's something I ought to know. And so I will research it for you. We'll let you know.
Okay, I'm making a note of that. I'm writing it down right now, and we will have an answer and get back to Najifa on that. All right, Dave asked this question. I thought I had a Google My Business account because I have the profile that shows in the upper right with a map, reviews, etc. Apparently, this is not a Google My Business account.
My guess is that it is an account, but anybody can set it up. And maybe, does it say in little print somewhere, it says, are you the owner of this business? Because when people put their businesses on maps, Google will create a profile sort of, but it's never been verified. Okay, so not knowing any more detail than what was in that question, my guess would be that it hasn't been verified. And so try that, check to see if it's been verified or not.
Okay, and this I'm going to say to Dave, who asked the question, but this is true of anybody. Peggy is available for mentoring, so you can send questions to Peggy through the SCORE website email address that we gave you at the beginning. We'll give it to you again at the end. And, or call the office and leave a voice message, and we'll relay it to Peggy, and we'll get back to you with specific answers. All right, we've got a question here. What should we do if we don't have a business phone number for Google My Business?
So my first question would be, are you sure you fall into the local business category? Because if you're an online only business, you would not have a phone number. So my first question is, are you sure you're a local business? Because you may not be eligible.
Okay, good thought.
Otherwise, I would try, so I think that's the first thing I would check to make sure you're really eligible.
Okay, but if somebody has a business and they have a phone, they don't think of it as having a separate business phone number. I don't know if this was the question, but I'm just going to ad lib here. They just use their personal phone and they conduct their business off of it. They could put that out there if they wanted to on Google My Business, correct?
They could, but do remember it'll be public. But of course,
right. Yeah, that would be the downside. If you don't want your personal phone number then out there, then it makes sense to think about getting a second line.
Yeah.
Okay, good question. Good answer. All right, and Marina asked this question, I'm starting a new product. How do I introduce it?
Oh, you have multiple ways to introduce a new product. I would certainly put it in that product section where, you know, the little picture will show, but I would also probably run a series of posts, and the post can talk about this product and its features. So one post, I don't know what your product is, but the one post would talk about how great it looks and, you know, click learn more. Another one would say, you know, coming soon, visit us, and would, you know, you click to make an appointment to get a demo. So I think I would use posts as an opportunity to have this little awareness campaign, if you will, about your new product. But I would also put it using the product menu item. I would also put a picture of it in there.
That's great. Thanks, Peggy. We're out of time. We've had some great questions, so I thank everybody for staying with us and for asking all these wonderful questions. Margaret, I want to thank you for an excellent presentation. We have another webinar coming up on October the 5th for those of you who are still in the format stage of starting a new business. This one is going to be given by John Fisher. So you want to start your own business. Now what? It's a question we get as mentors from a lot of people. That'll be on October the 5th at 6 p.m. And we normally will send you notices by constant contact. Constant contact. If you're not on our mailing list, the mailing list Margaret has put up on the screen, and you see it here. And then you can also go to our website. Our webinars will be listed there, northchicago.score.org. We thank you very much for joining us tonight. We hope you found this very interesting. You will receive an evaluation, and we hope you'll take just a few minutes to fill in your evaluation, because we take your comments very seriously, and especially if you send us any requests for other topics that you would like us to speak on in the future. Well, that's it. Margaret, I want to thank everyone, and thank you most of all. Everyone have a great night and a good evening.